Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Tracy Show. I know in parentheses it says Wednesday, but I had to postpone Wednesday's show because I wasn't feeling well, and StreamYard didn't let me go back to change it to Saturday. You know it's Saturday. I know it's Saturday. So I'm welcoming everyone to the show before I let my guest introduce himself. Um, I have a couple of announcements to make. Subscribe to my channel. I now have 214 subscribers. My goal is to get to 250 before the end of April. So if you're watching out there, if you're so inclined to do, hit the subscribe button. Remember also to like this podcast because the likes and the shares and the comments help me to increase my algorithm. I think that's what it's called. Yes, algorithm. And remember to subscribe to Kiko's page. I've spelled it out there. So there it is. Subscribe to his channel. So I'm going to let my guest introduce himself. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, people. My name is Kiko. My real name is Jerry Scruggs. Dr. Jerry Scruggs. I hold a PhD in Spanish at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and that's really my background. I'm a literary critic, and currently I'm outside of academia because I dedicate a lot of my attention to my YouTube channel, which is entitled Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum, which is an attempt to really educate people outside of the walls of academia and connect with working people and people who don't have access to some of the information that we get in the libraries, for instance, at the universities. So that's my contribution to society outside of academia. And I pretty much see it as my lifeline and my dedication right now. But I appreciate you inviting me to the show to discuss these important topics, Tracy.
And see, I wanted to, and I think we're still going to do it. We're definitely going to be serious, but I have to be comical because it's just me. And I have to, because we're going through so much right now. I mean, we've got the whole situation in Gaza, Congo. There's not a place in this planet where there isn't some type of occupation by the U.S. imperialism system that's going on. So, in addition to what the topic that we're talking about, I want the audience to kind of bear in on this. I want to talk about also politicians that look like they can cuss you out. That's another topic I want to talk about because I was going to say fight, but YouTube is going to have a problem with that. So I'm going to go with the second one. So I initially approached you about discussing the Congressional Black Caucus, and I have my definite feelings about them. None of them positive, but I'm going to talk first and then me sort of add in the background later.
You cut out some, so I didn't know if you
Oh,
asked
I
me a
just said I'm
question.
going to I had approached you about talking about the Congressional Black Caucus, its supposed work, like what it is that they're working on, their agenda, their platform, and I don't know if that's what you want to call it, because I don't think they have much of a platform. For a while there, they didn't even have to work for the advancement of Black people in their platform until like maybe a couple, like 9 months ago. They finally brought that in there.
Mm-hmm. Um, do you want me to comment on the current Congressional Black
Current,
Caucus?
past, whatever it is, your thoughts.
I um I think, to be fair, we have to start out with the history of the Congressional Black Caucus. We can't just fast forward to 2024 because it's clear that the current Congressional Black Caucus isn't reflective of the old one. The Congressional Black Caucus was established by the Civil Rights Act of 1965. That's important to note. It actually wasn't even called the Congressional Black Caucus when it started out. It was actually called the Democratic Select Committee in 1969. It was in the summer of 71, I believe, when it officially became the Congressional Black Caucus that we know today, with I forgot the gentleman's name, but I believe he was a congressperson from Missouri. Clay, last name Shirley Chisholm for sure. She's pretty much she's pretty known as far as like a public face or whatever. She was the first Black woman elected into Congress. And there was another gentleman, Lewis something. I can't recall the name, but those are the three starting members. And then I think it expanded to like 13 members. They ended up joining in 1971. But it was originally called the Democratic Select Committee, which I think is interesting. So in other words, I believe it's always had an agenda that was geared in line with the Democratic Party, which would make sense because the act that established the whole body as a whole would have been the first racialized caucus in the Congress, even before the Hispanic caucuses came along and everything else. The CBC is given a lot more attention, but it's always been more or less a Democratic arm. The value at first was that those people were a lot more fluid. The Congressional Black Caucus used to be a more fluid organization. Sometimes it would go against its own party. Sometimes it would go against Congress as a whole. The people were more independent within the caucus. For instance, John Conyers was advocating reparations back in the 70s. And then you have people like Charles Rangel, even people like Barbara Lee. At earlier stages in their careers, they were more, I guess, what you would call more radical about certain issues. I don't want to fast forward too much because I kind of want to show the progression of the caucus. And there have been moments where things changed. Even the 1994, the whole crime bill that comes up, we know that Joe Biden authored the crime bill, started in 1981, by the way, not 1994. He started drafting legislation in 1981. You can go to congress.gov and it has all the information there for you. So you don't think that I'm making this stuff up. So in other words, he already had this in the works. These things are planned out years in advance. It's not something that just falls on the desk or whatever. These people are already thinking this stuff. But the Congressional Black Caucus drafted its own version of the crime bill, even not. And that's something that's not talked about, even though ultimately the Congressional Black Caucus succumbed to the 94 crime bill and voted on it. It actually drafted its own separate legislation, and it actually had ending mandatory minimums in the language, which was not part of the language of the original crime bill. So that shows that the Congressional Black Caucus, even though they ended up signing on to the larger agenda, they still had a lot of conflict even within the Democratic Party. It is a Democratic Party arm. It was always established that way, even though it says technically it's a nonpartisan organization. But me personally, I believe that it's outlived its purpose, like a lot of things have. I think we need a revamp just in the whole political system as a whole. I think that it's a product of its time, unfortunately. When we talk about the civil rights movement during the 50s and even into the 60s, I think we have to reassess those periods and think about the context we live in now versus back then. But that's not to say that it didn't have value at some point. It absolutely did have value at some point. And you could argue that we wouldn't be where we were now if it wasn't for the laying bricks that were there for Black politicians to get into public office and stuff. The Congressional Black Caucus used to take more hardline stances. What time period are we talking about? The 70s, the 80s, even into the 90s. But the 90s is where it changed completely. What I mean by hardline stances, most of the Congressional Black Caucus had a lot to do with the apartheid, the anti-apartheid in South Africa. Like, while the rest of the Democratic Party would be silent about the apartheid in South Africa, the Congressional Black Caucus members would be very openly against the apartheid in South Africa. So there have been moments where the CBC was a lot more vocal about issues and were more willing to confront these issues versus the party itself, the Democratic Party. Because I think there have been 12 members of Congress selected as Black Republicans. I think 4 have actually been a part of the CBC, but as of now, there's no members.
Yeah, there's none now.
Everybody's, so the CBC is all Democrats. I think there's 54 people total that's a part of the caucus right now. But even issues about Palestine, CBC members back in the 70s and 80s would be more vocal towards issues against the Palestinians, very openly defined the Democratic Party leadership without a problem. That changed, I think, in the 90s is when the CBC started to change under the Clinton administration. That's when it became more engulfed into the Democratic Party itself. In other words, there was no, pretty much you could guarantee that the vote would be in line with the party, when previously the CBC was a more independent corpus, in my opinion. Even though it was technically founded within the Democratic Party structure, they still had more independent thoughts within the members themselves. The War of Iraq was really the breaking point with the CBC, with most of the members absolutely just folding in half. You can read The Black Agenda, which was a book established by Glenn Ford, who founded the Black Agenda Report with Margaret Kimberly and Bruce Dixon, I believe in 2006. So if you read that book, it talks about, gives a whole chapter, pages and pages of information that talks about kind of the fracturing of the Congressional Black Caucus and how eventually lobbying is what ended up happening to the members themselves. And that's really a problem that's symptomatic of Congress. The more lobby money you get, you go against your interest or whatever your original interests were, you change your priorities.
Or
and we know people who are tied to the pharmaceutical companies and the big banks and everything else. And so you see that political views change as a result of the money that's coming in that's attached to them.
Yeah, there's an alternative. Because you said a good point about how they acquiesce to the money interest. My criticism of the Congressional Black Caucus has been this couple things. I think that they'll tell the public, sure, we're for health care. No, we're for more affordable health care. And they will circumvent what I want is basically what we call Medicare for all. That's what I'm going to call it, just to make it simple. You don't hear members of the Congressional Black Caucus. Maybe Ilhan Omar. Maybe she's probably like the only one that has disagreed with President Biden, especially the Gaza issue. And she's raised other issues where she has disagreed. The rest of them, including my congressman, they pretty much have fallen in line. And I don't know. You said it was the 90s, and we know when it took place, but I'm wondering why it took place.
Why? What took place?
Why did they start off radicals, which is where, that's where I would prefer them to be, and now they've just Democratic Party?
Well, I just answered it. It's simply you have to understand that we can't discredit the historicity. The historicity is super important because, again, even though it was established as a Democratic corpus, and they say it was nonpartisan when it was founded, but the evidence shows that it was never nonpartisan. It was always attached to the Democratic Party. I mean, that's just the reality of it. I mean, the fact that now there's no members from the Republican Party in the caucus is a testament to that fact. But with proximity to the civil rights movement, a lot of the earlier CBC members were still associated with the civil rights movement. People like Ron Dellums, who Cornel West talks about extensively in his book Race Matters that was published in 1992. And that's the reason why I made comments off air before we came on weeks ago about Cornel West and his ties to the Congressional Black Caucus. And the way I view basically Cornel West as an old version of the caucus. He still has a proximity with the Democratic Party, even though he's technically independent now. But we all know that he has a proximity with the Bernie Sanders crowd, that sort of wing of the Democratic Party. I mean, that's just an indisputable fact. He supported Joe Biden in 2020. But it kind of shows, going back to the original point about the caucus members, it's simply times changed and money corrupts. I'll say that much.
Yeah,
Money corrupts. And
absolutely.
so the caucus went more right wing, just like the Democratic Party used to be more of a labor party. Even in the 80s with Michael Dukakis, all those people, the Democratic Party was still very much union, very pro-union. But the Democratic Party is no longer a labor-based party. It's a corporate party. And so inevitably, if you're attached to the party, it doesn't matter what color you are, what agenda you have, you're going to fall in line with your party unless you break away from the party. So that's the reason why the CBC members reflect the way they do now, is because the Democratic Party is a right-wing party now. It's a corporate party, just like the Republican Party is. So, of course, those members within that quote-unquote Democratic Party, which is not a left-wing party at all, that's just part of the propaganda that's used. They're going to fall in line with what the party tells them to do. But like I said, there were moments you have to break it up, I think, between the 70s and the 80s. And in the 90s, you kind of have transitional periods within the Congressional Black Caucus. And after the war of Iraq is pretty much, that spelled the end of the Congressional Black Caucus as far as advocating anything reparations related, black policy related, to where it's just basically whatever the Democratic Party wants is what the Congressional Black Caucus represents.
And I think that's what my frustration is, because if I look at the like, because I looked up other caucuses. I looked up the Asian caucus, I looked up the Hispanic caucus, I looked up the Jewish caucus. I'm not sure if that's what they're called, but in general, I looked at what was their mission. And they all each had some variation of, I want to make my community better in these specific ways. Black caucus, it's we support whatever Joe Biden says. You're going to be silent on reparations. You're going to be silent on the fact that black mothers die in childbirth at higher rates than any other race. You're going to be silent on the fact that black people are disproportionately affected by the present industrial complex. You're silent on all of these things, and you want me to vote for you. That's where my criticism lies, because I'm like, you can't, and I know this is specifically talking about black people, and sorry to the non-black people, but you'll catch on when you catch on. As a black American, I'm always going to put black Americans at the forefront, because I believe that when black people do better, the American society will do better collectively. That's just something I've always believed. Somehow the Black Caucus has figured out, we'll just tell them things they want to hear. But when we actually get in office, it's like the Great Disappearing Act. Those, I mean, I know you said money interest, but there's something at the core of it, because essentially, to me, and you could disagree with this and we can have this discussion, I'm just gonna call them straight up sellouts, because I can't point to anything that they have said that's going to benefit the black community. I can't remember a time where they said, hey, if you don't, instead of this putting reparations into a committee and putting a commission on it, never does anything. It's like, if you don't pass reparations, Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, Tim Clyburn, we're not going to vote for anything you do. We're going to withhold. It's more like force the vote, but for black people. I've never heard them recently. Now, maybe, you said they used to do that.
They did.
But like I know money interest happened, but there's something else that happened. I don't know where that something else is. I know it's more than money. that just made them forget. Like, I know they can't forget they're black because they look in the mirror every day. But like
Mm-hmm.
something like they just took all the issues of black Americans and just said, oh well, is money that great? Is money that great? And I'm just missing it. It feels like something I'm missing, and I don't understand it.
I think the difference, the way we approach it between you and I, for instance, is that I don't give as much legitimacy to the political system as you do. Um, I can't really blame the CBC. I do blame the CBC, but at the same time, the CBC is a result of the system. The system being the two-party system, the one-party system, whatever you want to call it. So I don't want to be too hard on the Congressional Black Caucus. I don't agree with the Congressional Black Caucus for sure, but it's inevitable that that was going to happen. Any of the other caucuses that you named, they still reflect the Democratic Party platform. I just think that when we start assessing our own communities, it's closer to home because the people look like us. But at the same time, what do you expect them to do? I mean, they're doing what their party is telling them to do. They're still, you can't see the CBC is separate from the Democratic Party. It's inherently attached to the Democratic Party. So there shouldn't be any surprise factor there. They're attached to the Democratic Party. They're all Democrats. It doesn't matter if they're black, blue, green, orange, or purple. And that's the way people have to look at it. It sucks because they're black people, but they're Democrats at the end of the day. And Democrats are going to support other Democrats. That's why your show is so important, because it highlights people outside of the two parties, but it also shows the challenges that those people have. They don't have the funding that the two corporate parties have. Um, Another danger I think that we need to realize is we have to, if we're going to break away from the two parties, we have to, there has to be a complete breakaway. There can't be 1 foot in and 1 foot out, because I know we all had roots in the Democratic Party at one point. I know I was a hardcore Democrat at one point, but that was like 20 years ago. I've been pretty much an independent since Obama's second term, and that's when I stopped supporting Democrats altogether. But a lot of people are still emotionally attached to the Democrats, even though they're not Democrats. Um, but the CBC, we have to look at the CBC as a Democratic corpus. That's what it is. And that's what it was even in the early days when they went against their own party. Um, I think it may be a little unfair to just give them like all the criticism. Like, I understand it. Like, they rightfully deserve to be criticized, but it's the Democratic Party. That's the reason why it's like that. Um, it's just like any issue that's a black centered issue is inevitably going to be attached to the Democratic Party. You can't have an open discussion unless you form your own political party, or unless you do some grassroots organizing that has nothing to do with politics. There's no as long as you're attached to the political party, which we can both agree that is a corporate party through and through. So that means whether it's an environmental issue, reparations, whether it's police reform or anything, it's not even about solving the issue and helping those communities that are disproportionately affected by these issues, like the environment, environmental racism, anything like that. It's about what the party leadership wants. And we saw that with the Bernie 2015 movement. Any of the so-called rank and file Democrats who are less popular than the bigger, more Clinton wing, Obama wing Democrats, those people are going to fall in line with the moderate mainstream Democrats. That's just how it is. AOC is becoming more and more like a moderate Democrat. She started out, people thought that she was going to be this radical, but that's how it is. Because unless you break away from the party, you're going to be a part of the party. I mean, that's the way we look at it. We can't look at it as progressive Democrat, conservative Democrat. A Democrat is a Democrat. That's the way I see it. And the CBC is no exception to this.
Here's where I'm going to slightly disagree with you. In theory, everything you said I agree with. However, in the political sense, it makes sense to me that certain groups would align themselves with each other. If you are, you live in a farm state like Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, whatever state, it would make sense that you would align yourself with other people who have like interests. That's why you have political parties, because you're aligning yourself with people who have like interests. When the Black Caucus says what they're going to do, well, actually, they never say what they're going to do except for support Biden's agenda. I'm wondering how then do we still. Let me make sure I'm saying this question right. When you said there needs to be a break from the political system, you're preaching to the choir. I know exactly what you're saying. How do we then let people see not only, the Black Caucus, they're really just Democrats because that's what they are. How do we break people away from that? Because if you look at just the caucus, if I'm just looking, because my congressperson is Black, I cannot name the last time my congressman had a town hall meeting. I can't name it. And he's been there. He's got reelected 3 times. Can really be his 4th because there's really no way he loses. Mm-hmm. How do we break that, right? Because you said it yourself. When you break away from the system, you run as a third-party candidate, you're not going to have the money that the main candidates have because they're bought off by corporations. So how do we, as activists, tell people, hey, we need to break away from the Democratic Party because they have no Black interests. And keep in mind, we're talking about Black people. They have no Black interests in mind. You ask Joe Biden about reparations for Black Americans, that's a specific question, and he wants to bring in indigenous people. The question wasn't about indigenous people, the question was about Black people. And they do that kind of thing to get us to distract. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to break people. I'm like, it's right there. I do a poor job at saying, hey, this is why you need to break away. I want to do better because if every Black person left the Democratic Party, they would absolutely lose. They cannot win without the Black vote. There's no way they can win any. Republicans can win elections without Black people, period. They're going to
see a lot of what you're saying is part of the issue because it's almost like you're still coming from the Democratic Party mindset.
Yeah.
Even though you're away from it, you're still attaching yourself to the Democratic Party. It's like to be truly independent, you have to view both parties as exactly the same.
Okay, I agree with that. Yep, I agree with that.
And the thing about it is they use different signals and messaging. That's the dangerous part. And that's why I think a lot of Black people still are attached to the Democratic Party, because I have these conversations with people and they really don't agree with the Democratic Party, but they tell me this, the way they talk sounds better. And the problem is that you're comparing yourself to just the other side. There's not a psyche in place in the country yet that's thinking of multiple party representation. Everything is based to blue or red, R or D. There's nothing else to compare itself to. And that's why I say that the system is so dangerous, because it self-perpetuates. And that's why people can't escape it, because when you flip the cube on the other side, it's still something else. The enemy is still there. And when you flip it back, the enemy is still there. You're still looking at the opposition because you're still inside of the cube. And so until you leave the cube, that's the only way you're going to see that, oh my gosh, the cube looks the same in the inside, but I didn't know because I was stuck inside of the cube. But and that's the problem. It's a psychological issue, because people have been under pressure for so long, whether it's economic pressure, societal pressure, whether it's peer pressure or anything. At the human level, people are under pressure at the most probably in our modern history. whether it's some suicide going up or anything, mental depression is so real. It is. And a lot of people don't even realize that they're depressed. But it's you add all that stuff on top of it, and sometimes a positive message, even though it's a fake positive message, is enough to keep people roped back into the system. And Democrats have done a great job of giving positive messages. They don't go off script too often, and that's by design. And the Republicans do what they do by design. It's just a good cop, bad cop dichotomy, if you ask me. And the Democrats have lived up to that good cop dichotomy, that model, and is really a tough cycle to break. I tell people to get a sheet of paper. You write down 10 things that are the most important to you, and then you expand it to the people that you love the most. You compare those notes to each other, the 10 most important things you look for in a leader. And then you compare it to what the positions are with the politicians that you're looking up to. And then you make a decision accordingly. If you want to give credence or any kind of stock into this system, which I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I won't support anyone. I probably will end up supporting someone for president, and I'll probably end up supporting people in local offices. But my cynicism is at an all-time high towards the politicians, but there is optimism to be there for people who are breaking away from the system. People are breaking away from the system, but you have to understand it's just like with anything, whether it's a hierarchy thing, whether it's the Black church. I know we've talked about this before. People have a right to do what they want to do, freedom of religion from religion. The church is a big thing in our community. I don't go to church anymore though, but I still have an attachment to my community. But people within the church may see it as like hard to believe that someone cannot be a part of the church, or they may not believe in God, for instance. And that would be where I fall into place. Like, I don't believe in the higher power. We've talked about this before. It's the same. It's almost like if you compare that to the political system, could you imagine someone saying that to you? They're telling you your whole life, you've been a part of something your whole life, and then you decide to break away from it. People are going to think you're crazy. And it took a long time for me to come to grips that, you know what? I'm probably going to get criticism from my own family, the fact that I say that I don't believe in God anymore. But you know what? It was a decision that I made for myself. And luckily, I'm still with my family. My family loves me more than ever. I love them more than ever. They gave me that confidence and will to be myself. But we don't have that willpower ourselves within the political system, because we don't give our voters any kind of empowerment. We give voters fear, and we give voters a false sense of hope. And I believe Obama probably did more damage than anything when you talk about, I know how I felt when Obama got in office.
Wait a minute. Well, hold on. I did not mean to stop you. So I'm going to make this point for a specific group of people. I made a comment on a podcast years ago that I thought Obama is the worst president of my lifetime. And the reason I said that is because you look at what he said, which he didn't mean any of it, and you look at how people were, like so many Black people were thrown into poverty under his administration. I can't ignore that, right? I can look at Reagan and say, yeah, Reagan was terrible and Trump is terrible. But when you say one thing and then you turn around and say, oh, I'm in office, I don't have to do those anymore, that bothers me. I don't know, maybe I just think too, like, if you say something, like, I'm a person, your word is your bond. If you say you're going to do it, do it. If you're not going to do it, then don't do it. Don't utter the words out of your mouth, and then when you get in office, I can't codify Roe v. Wade because it's not a priority. That's what you ran on. Why can't you codify it? And now we have what we
Mhm.
have. So that's why I said it. But it's really, as black people, yeah, I'm going to say it, the word police are going to not like me, but oh well, y'all already don't. We got to stop. And I say we, I mean black people. I don't know where the worship of Obama began. I don't know where it started. I don't know how it came to be. I know it exists because I still see you still can't say anything negative about Obama to some black people. They will go off on you. And you are literally sitting there saying what he did. Not what you think about him. I don't know him personally. He may be a good person. I don't know. But I can tell you what he did. Oh, well, he had Congress and he had no. The president has this thing, and I know people, he has two things at his back: executive orders and the bully pulpit. He didn't use either of those that much. He used them when he wanted to, but he didn't use the bully. I don't remember him bully pulpitting for some of the things. Maybe I'm just remembering something that didn't happen and somebody can point it out to me, but I had to say that when you said Obama continued.
You said a lot there. When I had Cynthia McKinney on my show back in February, she said that when she was running as the Green Party presidential nomination in 2008, she said she was at a discotheque in California, and she said she heard a thunderous applause and just like a stomping on the ground, but it was actually people chanting. And guess what they were chanting? They were chanting Obama, Obama, Obama. It was so loud it sounded like a thunderstorm. And she said it was almost like it was an intelligence operation. That's how it seemed. Obama was a creation of the Democratic Party.
Thank you. Oh,
Obama,
100%.
no different than what the CBC was originally. I think the two had different agendas. Obama capitalized off of people's emotions and fears. My very conservative in-laws voted for Obama the first time. Obama at that point, that summer of '07, going into '08, Obama was like the new kid on the block. Obama couldn't do anything wrong. He had some opposition, but even with the smears and the birth certificate stuff and everything else, you just knew that people, he's like, oh my gosh, he's so cool. You got to support him. This could be the time. I'll tell you why Obama was so popular and still remains popular. It's a generational gap issue. I bet if you did a poll with people born after 2010, for instance, and I know those people technically can't vote. So let's just do after '05, people
Yeah,
born
put them in voting age. Yeah, some
people
people.
people born, let's just say the 18 to 20-year-old crowd, if you compare their view of Obama versus someone that's in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, for instance, that's going to be a difference of opinion. Obama was he was a transgenerational figurehead, and even more so than Bill Clinton was, because when Bill Clinton came on the scene in '92, another Democratic Party creation, these people, they seem like they come out of thin air and just catapult into popularity. But the party knows this. The party measures statistics way in advance. They already have the pulse of the voters. I'm not going to say the pulse of the people, because I don't think that the voting bloc necessarily represents the people. Most people don't vote versus voting. There's a larger non-voting bloc than there is a voting bloc. And those
Correct.
people are also people. But Bill Clinton kind of had that aura about him when he came on the scene. He was the new kid on the block, played the saxophone,
Terribly. That was
appeared.
terrible. That was literally terrible. I'm like, that is the worst playing. Y'all sitting here talking about that was good. All
but
off key. Let me shut up. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
but Obama, he capitalized on people's emotions. My dad said he cried for the first time ever towards a politician because he never thought in his lifetime that he would see a black president. And see, my dad was born in 19. He's born in 1955, and I saw my dad like he was super emotional when they were all up there on the stage. Um, it's like the country had finally healed. Um, but again, retrospectively, a lot of people have to reassess their thoughts because we know that things have not changed since that point. Um, I don't think that this country is, I don't think we have a race problem throughout and throughout. We have racial issues, but a lot of people conflate that with a racial problem across the board. Our biggest issue is more of an economic issue, um, with race thrown in here and there. But people would be lying if they said that race relations haven't gotten better. They have gotten better. Race relations have progressively gotten better since the generation before us. They have. They've gotten better. Our kids really almost don't have a concept of like going into the room, hanging out with their friends. When I was in school as an elementary kid, and this is a great book for your listeners, Beverly L. Tatum published a book called Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? Talks about affirmative action. But you have those moments where why are all the black kids sitting together at the cafeteria table and everyone else is sitting at their own table? I lived on those times in the early 90s where that was still a thing, but I was always a kid that sat with everybody. I didn't have any kind of a notion like that. Sure, I would sit with my black friends, but I would also sit with other people too. But there was a certain pressure back then to simply be with your group. I think Obama relaxed. He relaxed race relations. That doesn't mean that he helped with the race relations. He simply relaxed it. So regardless of who you were, you could point to and be like, oh, we have a black president, though. We have a black president, though. And that's still very powerful as a symbol. This country is all about symbolism. We love some symbols. We love some symbolism. We definitely do. And the political sphere is no exception to that symbolism. And Obama definitely, he's almost undefinable in a way because he's an enigma still. He's still an enigma, even though he's been a part of the public memory, really since he came on the scene as a senator in Illinois. And that's why it's dangerous to talk about him because it's almost like you can't define him because you assess his career and you say to yourself, what did he actually do during his
What did
time?
he actually do? And that's see, I want to agree with what you're saying, but here's what I will say. Oh, America has a big time racial problem. Let me tell you why. The racial wealth gap. Huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
Systemic racism is a problem. It is. It could be better. It's probably better now than it was 20 years ago, better than it was 40 years ago, but it's still a problem. I think what people did with Obama is there's so few African Americans within that political realm, right, that
Mm-hmm.
succeed, that obtain what he did. I mean, there were black people before Obama that ran for president. There was Shirley Chisholm. There was Jesse Jackson. I'm sure there were others. But Obama obtained it. So now we had that level of success. Yes, I know Obama's biracial for somebody that's going to say, but he's biracial. But I don't want to say we were so desperate that we just clinged on to anything. But when I start to ask myself, what did he actually do? He let George W. Bush free from war crimes, which he clearly did, and said we had to move forward. No, that's not why I voted for you. You need to make him responsible for the war crimes that he was committing. And then he committed war crimes. The drone strikes on Syria. He was nothing more than, like, I'll say it this way. Every president after Reagan is some form of Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
George H.W. Bush was Reagan vice president. Bill Clinton was cool Reagan. George W. Bush was war hawkish Reagan. Obama was black Reagan. Trump was dumb Reagan. Biden was old Reagan. They all are some iteration of Ronald Reagan. All of them. If you compare the policies, like I said, from Jimmy Carter, don't put Carter in it. From Reagan down, it just got progressively worse and worse and worse and worse in terms of our occupation and the expansion of our military. It's increased every year. Every year, our military has expanded after Reagan. And so when I look at Obama, it can only be one of two things. One, we just grabbed at whatever and said, now we're in the building, which we should have realized we were in place. Or it's kind of like where you said your dad was in, because he finally saw somebody that looked similar to him in a position that he never thought that we would get to. And that's where the struggle was. Didn't mean the struggle was over, but at least now you can say, hey, we had a black president. Because look what we got after Obama, Trump. If America wasn't racist, we would have gotten Hillary, which would have been another iteration. She would have been female Reagan. But I mean, I'm just saying, I don't, as much as there's red MAGA, there's blue MAGA, and then there's Obama worship. And especially in the black community, we are very, very, very guilty. And I'm saying we because I partially did it. We are guilty of, in some retrospect, worshiping Obama, just like some Trumpsters worship Trump. Like he can't say anything wrong, he can't do anything wrong, and we put Obama at that same level. We shouldn't, because we should be asking what it is that they're doing, but because we're propagandized, we won't ask those questions. Because I'm like you, I'm like, what did he actually do? What did he literally do that stood out to me? And I'm having a hard time naming something. I'm like, it was and then there was I can't name anything. I'm sure there's something, and anybody that says the Affordable Care Act, you're gonna get blocked because that's not Medicare for all.
Tracy, let me make a clarification. When you define racism and race relations is not the same as racism. I never said that the United States was not a racist society.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Racism has to do with institutions. The problem is that I think we blame people one-on-one at the individual level too much. I think that is a different thing. That's race relations. If you have to, I personally categorize the two completely different. I think when a bank decides not to give black people loans versus another group loans, that's completely different from a MAGA supporter even not liking you across the street. The two aren't the same at all. Like the macro, micro level stuff is completely different. I'm saying the micro level race relations have gotten better. That has nothing to do with institutions, though. Institutions being whether it's the university structure that only allows certain types of opinion and dissent, whether it's the banking industry that only allows certain types of people in it. Those are systems of oppression. Those corporations have their own structure, and that's a different animal versus people on the everyday level. My goal with my forum is to bring people together, and I think people are deciding to come together, but we have to have these reawakening moments. We need to reassess ourselves. Black people are just as guilty as anybody else or any other group when it comes to this. We're not the most perfect people. We can be very racist towards people. I see it at work all the time. There's no tolerance towards people's languages. There's no tolerance towards people's belief systems. It's just another form of prejudice. The homophobia, the transphobia is no different. I don't see it as any different. Being black is not some kind of an exceptional thing, in my opinion. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. And I get that blacks are more attached to certain issues, and historically we've been oppressed across the board. And you can look to certain industries where we are more exploited than other groups, whether it's the prison industry or even corporate America. But at the end of the day, race relations, I think we got to stop blaming our neighbors. So the system wants us to blame the person that we should have more in common with. Um, and this is kind of going into the class race debate. I think that you have to have the two together. You can't separate class and race, they go together. Um, and so I don't subscribe to the idea that race this, race that, race this. I don't agree with that. I think that we have to sympathize with poverty and identities. Is you? I don't think you can just separate the two. And when that happens, I think we have to really reassess it because there's been transitions with that. The reality is that they're more poor whites than us, but proportionally, how does that look? It's a lot different when you talk about the actual proportions. But the ruling class doesn't really care what color you are. The ruling class cares about one color, and that's green. They don't care what color you are. Um, I guess the point I was making earlier is that as long as we're attached to this political system, whatever you want to advocate for isn't going to be a part of the priority of the ruling class. So the only way you can really advocate those issues is that you have to start organizing from the ground up outside of the political system. The political system is not going to save it. Um, if anything, the political system is going to drown out your cause. Um, and I know that we want to think of politics as being kind of the saving grace, but the opposite has happened. And with corruption being at an all-time high, and with the lobbying being at an all-time high, you can pretty much guarantee that if you do come in with a person that is quote unquote pro reparations, by the time they leave public office or Congress, they're not going to be promoting reparations at all. They're going to be promoting something completely different because there's no money in it. Um, there is money in the ADOS stuff, sure. And that's why you don't hear a lot about those people anymore, like the Yvette Carnells. And I, I'm not even going to drop this person's name because I've talked about it on my show before. People not coming on to the show because I wouldn't buy 25 copies of their book, for instance. But you're supposed to be someone that's educating somebody about reparations. Dr. Sandy Darity, yeah, that's who I'm talking about. From Here to Equality, great book. But to me, if the issue is you promoting reparations and educating people about it, you shouldn't require someone to buy several copies of your book for you to come onto that platform, let alone a black doctor. You're talking to a doctor here, and you're a doctor too, and that's not enough for you to educate the people. You have to have money. You have to have a money incentive to promote your agenda. And so any issue can be monetized, and reparations is a big moneymaker now in certain circles. So I honestly don't even know, and that's the sad part. That's not even in Congress right now. This stuff is happening outside of Congress, the money hustle. So when you attach money to it, it becomes way less organic. It just becomes another money making scheme. And even reparations, we have to be cautious with reparations even now, because if anything, reparations is almost a buzzword now. If you say reparations and a politician saying reparations, there's an attachment to it, like, oh my gosh, they're talking about reparations. They're speaking my language. But remember, they're using a language like the Democrats use to get your votes and like Republicans use to get your votes. If unless it's tangible, it's still just a language. And so a lot of these people are great with words, but they're not good with actions. And so with any issue, once it becomes sucked into the political system, it becomes political.
Yep, I definitely definitely agree with that point that you made, and again, if I made that indication, I definitely hope you accept my apologies. Because that's not where I wanted to do. But if you never see Kiko on this platform again, you'll know why.
No, you kidding?
You'll know why. So I want to move
No,
this last portion into the fun topic. And I said, you know what? I've got to do something fun because there's a lot going on. There is a lot. We have the continuing genocide in Gaza. We have Congo. We have TikTok going away possibly, which I could get into that, but I'll do that on my own platform on Tuesday because I got some real unique thoughts about that because I keep asking, why don't you take off your Chinese-made clothes, your Chinese-made properties and start there? But then, you just want to sit here and ban TikTok. Okay, let's do this. Because the whole thing is ridiculous. But that's not the fun topic I want to talk about. I had to, but I knew YouTube will definitely take down one of them. I wanted to talk about politicians I think can fight. Yes, I wanted to, but then I was like, you know what? That's not right. I'm supporting a non-violent candidate. That's what I'm going to do. So instead, I'm going to talk about politicians that I think will cuss you out in a minute. And I got number one. Heard him cuss people out. Jim Clyburn. I heard him cuss people out. Period. He was on a tape talking to somebody, asked him about reparations. He clean cussed that man out. And it was just a general, hey, do you support reparations for black people? You would think that's either a yes or no answer. Jim was like, man, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, watch your mouth, please. So I'm picking him first because I've heard him do it.
Are you asking me like?
Yes, it's a conversation, so you can add whoever you want.
Who do I think would be what now?
Who do you think as a politician will clean cuss you out?
Clean cuss me out as a politician. I mean, Trump kind of does it already.
Yeah, Trump does. Yeah, Trump doesn't count because he cusses everybody out.
It's like pretty much.
That's like him opening his mouth. Oh, I got some more. I could just go. I'm like, yep, I got this person. I got one that's gonna surprise you. You're gonna be like, what? I don't believe you put that person.
Do you remember when Jesse Jackson? You remember when he said something about Obama? They had like the hot mic on him. And
oh yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. But he wasn't lying though. The thing was what he said. He was not lying.
Mm-hmm. I think most of them have those moments, but I know that I could see Ayanna Pressley like going hard on somebody.
Thank you. That was gonna be my surprise pick, but now I gotta think another one. Here's my next one.
Ayanna Pressley.
Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, God.
Just because she 85, that don't mean she can. She look like you say something to her, she gonna go off. Mm-hmm. She look like her. And I'm going to put it in my other tie for that second place. Her and Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. Period. And
I'm sure that they have a lot of cursors in office. MTG's another one.
She will. She cussed out a child.
I mean, she basically does that to Joe Biden during every State of the Union.
Let's not talk about that State of the Union. She wore that little outfit. Girl. Somebody named my next pick in the comments, but he commented earlier.
Cori Bush. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Bush. Yep.
Oh Lord. I'm like, yep.
Cori Bush definitely holds back. She probably.
You can tell she's holding back. She's like, nope, I can't say what I really want to say. Yeah. Like I really want to say this, but I'm gonna be good. I'm going to say AOC.
I can see that. Yeah, AOC. She's all right. Yeah.
Because she'll cuss you out in English and in Spanish.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm like, yep. But Cori Bush, yeah.
Yeah, and Cori Bush is a good one. Whoever said that, shout out because, no, that's probably my number one pick, even more so than Ayanna Pressley.
You know who else I think? Because again, I heard this person on the mic. No, I didn't. Who was it I just had in my head? Who was it I just had in my head? Who was it I just had in my head? Oh, we just talked about it. President Obama.
Oh yes, for sure. Yeah.
So you didn't say, well, Tracy, no way. I thought for sure you was gonna say no way. I'm like, yup. Him and Michelle look like you better not say nothing to him. Be like,
Oh, I think a lot of those people behind closed doors, they're like characters. They're probably completely different behind closed doors. You know that they curse all the time,
but I'm talking
and they
about
curse
like
somebody
to
out.
cuss out a voter. Yeah, I think Obama would.
If if we didn't have the type of system we had, I believe we see a lot more of that because you definitely see that more in other countries.
Don't you know they do not care? That's the thing about other countries. I'm like, why can't we be like them? Those politicians, they will tell they people, you shut the bleepity bleep up. And then that person will go right in there and vote for them. Like, huh? But they will, because that's the type of system they set up. Who else? I would say Joe Manchin, but
I was thinking Joe Manchin. Yep.
I don't he don't come across like that to me. Maybe he is, and I don't know.
He's
I'm
kind of
just
intimidating. His face is
he
intimidating.
don't scare me. He's just like you show him money, he'll shut up. It'd be like, oh,
Oh,
money.
good
Oh
point.
yeah. Oh look, money.
You do that to all of them. Yeah,
Well,
you're right.
basically.
Faces change.
Oh, I know this lady will cuss you out. Rashida Tlaib. Oh my gosh, lady. Whoo-wee. She'll drop them all. Drop it and drop you.
Hmm.
And drop you. Oh my goodness. Who else? Keep
I
going.
think the stronger personality, Rand Paul. I think the
His
stronger
father,
personality,
yes. His father, but him?
Rand Paul. I mean, he went pretty hard. I mean, he basically cursed out Fauci when they had that stuff going on in Congress. I mean, he was going in hard. Um, but like you said, yeah, Ron, Dr. Paul, yeah, he
Yeah, the
probably.
father. Oh yeah,
I can see
he.
Ron. Yeah, Ron definitely. He's definitely dropped some F bombs
Who
to
else?
some constituents.
Oh, I don't know why I didn't think of this person. Um, I said Obama. This gonna sound like a shocker. Bernie Sanders.
I could kind of see that a little bit.
I could see it. Like you would
Mm-hmm.
have to get him angry, 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 angry.
Mm-hmm.
But once, because he's told his like when he's at rallies, he'll tell people to shut up.
We go do it. We'll go do it. Burn it. I'm burning.
Yeah,
He's already got the voice. He's got the cadence already.
he's from New York. Like it's right there. I'm gonna start
Mm-hmm.
naming some independent candidates, but it's one I won't name
What do you mean?
because I'm a supporter of his. I don't,
You talking about Cornell?
yeah, I don't think he would. I would hope he wouldn't, but he looks
You don't
like
think
he.
Cornell West a curse?
I don't want to know. I just want to.
Is that a bad thing?
You know how I feel about profanity, right? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
a fan of it. I don't like it. So I'm like, nah, I can't. But Jill Stein, oh yeah, she and I know both know Jasmine Sherman.
Oh yeah.
Come on, she'll be like a woman, like
Oh,
Jasmine,
Jasmine, they've cursed on my platform a couple of times.
because you allow it. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like, nah, you're not gonna. She's like, I'm gonna have to try, but she did it. But she
Yeah, that's
was.
fine. That's fine. To each his own, you know.
Yeah, yeah, but Jasmine Sherman, she looked like she'd cuss you up. Also, Claudia De La Cruz. Oh yeah, she
Oh yeah.
she she looked, and she's Puerto Rican. Come on, it's like right there. It's like, mm-hmm. But nah, I can't put Dr. West on the list. It just I can't. Maybe he do, but I'm just gonna ignore that part. I'm just gonna put that out of my mind.
He can turn it on and off pretty easily. Yeah. So I mean, it'd probably be a super intimate moment to get him to curse or whatever. I mean, I'm sure he does. On the side with
I
some of his
review.
closest associates. I mean, these are people at the end of the day. I mean,
No.
most people curse. I mean, that's the thing about it. Even if it's not much, most people I think curse or.
But we're talking about politicians that be likely to cuss you out. I don't think Dr. West would be cussing people out.
Oh, I got you. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Because all the people I've named, pretty much they gonna cuss you out. Pretty much. If you get on their nerves, I'm pretty sure Jasmine, she'll be on here. She may not ever come on my show again, but she'll be like, yep, I sure will.
Mm-hmm. Why do you keep saying that if people aren't going to come on your show again?
No, I can never get guests. Like, nobody wants to be on my show anymore. I'm like, well, I'm just going to talk anyway. Now, who else do I think? I said Bernie Sanders. Oh, this one, I'm going old school with this one. I know she does. Hillary Clinton.
Oh, of course. No doubt. Yes.
I mean, she did give Bill that black eye. I mean, allegedly. Allegedly.
What happened?
Because he asked you to. Bill Clinton, when he confessed about the second affair, not Monica Lewinsky, he had this black eye, and it was rumored that Hillary is the one that gave it to him.
Really? This is the first time I've ever heard this before.
And he had a deep black eye. He said he fell into a lamp. See how you don't believe that either? Yeah, Hillary, you could tell she was cussing the day of the election. She was like, no, this is mine. I know I'm going to win.
Hillary probably smacked him with his pants.
Oh, see, YouTube, you going to have YouTube take off my videos? No. I only got 214 subscribers. I don't have the 500 that you have. I'm still sitting at 214 trying to get to 250. 250 is what I'm trying to get to. Trying to meet you halfway. Help me get halfway. Anyways, who else? I said Jim Clyburn because, I'm going to say Hakeem Jeffries he's a teeter-totterer.
Yeah, I see him thinking about it, but not coming through.
Yeah, like he'll think the word in his head, but he's not going to say it because he's always thinking, "What's the best political move? Like, what's best for me politically?" Oh, Lori Boebert.
I knew you were going to say. I was thinking Lauren Boebert.
Yeah. I got to put some more Republicans on this list. Yeah. I don't think
any of the ones that are part of that
Matt Gaetz
Trump crowd, any of those.
I wouldn't put Ted Cruz on the list though.
I see what you mean. Maybe.
I mean, because he's the kind of dude you can call his wife ugly, but he'll still work your campaign for you.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I said it. I don't care. I said what I said. Yeah, I mean, he literally. Trump called his wife ugly, and he's still, like, say somebody calls your wife ugly.
Trump a thug, man.
You're gonna work for his campaign. You're gonna be like, excuse you, you'll never. We're gonna step outside. That's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna have a discussion about why you gonna put ugly and my wife's name in the same sentence. Nope. He went and worked for his campaign.
God, that's funny.
I know that senator from Ohio will cuss you out. The new one, because he was threatening to fight people at his primary. I'm like,
Senator from Ohio.
Yep, senator from Ohio. Nina Turner, definitely.
Oh yeah.
I mean, come on, that's like saying the sky is blue.
What's up with Nina? Is she not run for office or anything? Is she?
No, she's not running. She has a new political, like a workers' rights group called something. So, I forgot what it was. No. Parker would know, but he's not watching. Strike back or strike on or strike something.
Okay.
But just type NinaTurner.com and it'll go to that news site. That much I do know. Nina Turner. I said, that one senator from Florida, the one with the bald head.
You talking about Lee?
Yeah, from Ohio. Yeah, Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if you watch that the primary debates, he literally got up into the other guy's face and like, "You want to fight?" I'm like, y'all wouldn't have elected this guy. He said, "You want to fight?" I'm like, okay, I guess that's how y'all roll in Ohio. I don't know. I live in Indiana.
Mm-hmm. You talking about Florida? You talking about DeSantis?
No, not DeSantis. That I said senator. The one
Okay.
that stole all that money from Medicaid. Chris. I think that's him. Yeah.
You talking about Charlie Crist?
Yes.
Really? Isn't he a Democrat now?
No.
I think so.
No, he is a dip. No, not him. The bald headed guy that's a senator now. I
You
can't
talking
think.
about Scott?
That's him. Okay, Chris is, yeah, he used to be Republican, but now he's Democrat. Which means he didn't
You
change.
talking
He
about
just,
Rick Scott?
yes, that's him.
Yeah, he's crazy. Yeah, he definitely.
Anybody from Texas minus Ted Cruz.
Anybody from Texas?
Anybody from Georgia. Anybody from Florida.
You think
Everybody.
Warnock? You think Warnock's going to curse?
He's a preacher. I've heard preachers curse during sermons. What are you talking
Really?
about?
Wow.
I think I want to say he wouldn't, but he would be thinking it. He'd be
No, I
thinking.
think he would.
He'd be like, I gotta, but then he gotta remember. Then I want to put him on the strong maybe list, but I'm like, eh. But Ossoff, oh yeah, Ossoff would.
Yeah.
Ossoff would. Last one. Yeah, I definitely think Warnock. I'm like, I could make an either or case. I can make a strong case. Yeah, he wouldn't, and then I can make a strong case. No, he won't. But who else? Cause see, politicians that fight could have been better because it would have been more entertaining. But everybody all old, so they can't really fight. The guy from Louisiana, the senator from Louisiana, yes. John Kennedy, yes. John Kennedy from Louisiana. Yes, absolutely 100%. That dude, I can't tell the people in Louisiana who to vote for. But y'all got to do better than that. That guy had a commercial talking about if you want to defund the police and your house gets robbed, call a crackhead. That was his whole commercial.
Seriously?
You haven't. Oh, I'll have to email you that commercial.
That's crazy.
He literally
I'll
said,
look it up on YouTube.
Go call a crackhead. That was his. I'm like, you said this because Chambers was running against him.
Mm-hmm. Gary Chambers, I think.
Gary Chambers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I was like, he don't stand a chance. But I wish he would have beat him because I'm like, dude, you said call a crackhead like out loud on a commercial for everybody for you to see.
He came close though, I think, didn't he?
I didn't think he did. I don't remember the vote total, but
he was pretty popular at one point. Chambers wasn't though. He even had buzz up here in Tennessee.
That's where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not too far from where I'm at.
Not too far. About Indianapolis is probably about 4.5 hour drive, 5 hours.
Oh, see, that's too long for me. I can't drive no more than an hour. I can't drive like an hour. I'm like, this too much. This is too much.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm like everybody in the state of Indiana, everybody, Democrat, Republican, just all of them. But I have gone on with this podcast as long as I can because I know Kiko has several other things to do besides me talking about politicians who I think can fight. And I didn't use that YouTube, so you can't take this video down. Tell everybody where they can find you at.
You can find me on my YouTube channel at Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. And if you have a question or comment for me, I will address it and answer it at KikoFreeThinker@gmail.com. And I just want to say thanks again, Tracy, for inviting me onto your show. It was an honor. I love talking with you and your audience, and enjoy the rest of your day. And I will link those books that I use. I didn't really use them a lot, but I'll link them as far as the Congressional Black Caucus if people want to learn more about it. And I think two of Cornel West books in particular, Race Matters and Democracy Matters, are almost them must reads or whatever, as far as understanding the political climate of today and just the black politicians in DC right now.
Yep. So everybody, thank you for watching this. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to subscribe to my channel, make your comments, share this video, like this video. Remember to subscribe and support me on Patreon. I am down to 0 Patreons, I think. So for $2 a week, you can help support me and support me buying new lights, because you can definitely see I need them. But at minimum, share this video. Get it out to as many people as you can. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, and we will resume our normal schedule next Tuesday. Have a fantastic day.